let me dance in your love. I wanna feel your fire, baby, let me dance in your love. I wanna feel your fire, baby, let me dance in your love. I wanna feel your fire, rising from the flames, that dies only to burn again. Let me dance in the rhythm of your flame. If I burn, let me die to burn again. If I burn, let me die to burn again.
Hi, welcome to Get Lit. I'm Rebecca Hahn, and this is Blue Star Dear Woman, and welcome to our show today. Today, the title of the show is Boots on the Ground, and we would like to cover sort of this idea that we've got front-end people that are really still working in the trenches, and part of this came to us because last week I was out in the trenches and seeing the evolutionary shift that's happening, and then the backside of it is people that are really doing the research and holding the space. And then there's a sort of bridge in between how we bring that together. And so we're going to speak to some of that today.
The full title is Boots on the Ground and How Humanity is Uplifting Evolution.
How Humanity is Uplifting Evolution. I don't know. I thought of that. Why didn't I say it? Right. In the sense that we have this idea that evolution is uplifting humanity, that evolution is forcing people to evolve to a higher place. And, you know, after the last couple of weeks, I'm kind of going, no, I think it's the other way around. Or chicken or the egg, I don't know. So we're going to address that today based on, you know, all of the stuff we've been seeing on CCN and other platforms, and the New Earth spirituality, or the disintegration of spirituality as we know it. And then looking at the front lines, the people doing the grunt work, and how I've seen shifting and changing happening in that way. But before we get into that, I just want you to notice, or let's speak to, that you can see that we're in a bit of a different setting here. We still have the same backdrop, but some of our other normalcies are gone. And I was gone last week, and I will continue to be gone on and off throughout the summer. So we are in huge transition. There's a lot of letting go universally, and Blue and I are both having to let go of a lot of things. The show is not one of them. However, we are dismantling the studio, and we are both moving into different locations on the planet. And I'm going to be really busy this summer traveling and doing work, and Blue is transitioning into some other things. So we're taking the studio mobile. So it's going to start looking really different. And there's going to be several times this summer I will be missing from the broadcast. However, I will, you know, give some lead-ins or something for Blue to address. Mm-hmm. So just know that we're not disappearing. It's just going to look a bit different. And we're going to be going mobile because I'm going to be in several parts of the country across the next 4 months. And she's going to be in a different location as well. So not ending, but just transitioning.
Yeah, so part of the look that will change is you and I won't be sitting beside each other.
We won't be sitting beside each
other.
I mean, maybe once in a while we will, because I'll be in and out doing business in the area.
Right.
So you might catch us in the same place here and there. But
yeah.
And I might be in a different location all the time. I don't even know what that's going to look like yet.
She's flying.
Yeah.
She's flying.
So,
but we'll be here every Thursday.
Yeah.
CCN live. All right. So maybe I should share a little bit personally about the energetics I'm experiencing.
Sure.
And how that is going to be reflected in this topic. I guess I'll begin with, as you know, as I sit in my meditations and just kind of try put my feelers out to get a sense of the world, the barometer of the world. I mean, ultimately, and pretty consistently for quite a while now, I generally have a sense that we are evolving in a very prominent and strong direction. I feel very uplifted. And when I assess energetically. I don't assess by circumstantially, right? And so although we have major collapse and dissolve happening on the planet, the overall sense on a spiritual, soulful level is that we've turned the corner And now it's just everything is moving into that chaos and reassembling and reorienting. And so something that came up for me recently is I pretty much was being guided on an internal way to wean a little bit more off of electronics, and to be very focused and clear that when I engage in the computer or engage in the internet, social networking, to be very select, like for instance, Get Lit and the promotion and CCN, to be very, very selective and be very watchful.
Purposeful too.
Purposeful. And watchful that, you know how you can get into a zone when you're on the computer. It's like you could go in there, you have 3 emails you got to knock out, and the next thing you know, 3 hours later, you've been surfing Facebook or the internet.
And you know all about the molestation that the Duggar boy did to his little sister, and you're like, wow, where'd my 3 hours go? This is bullshit.
Right.
What email did I have to send?
And then you get caught up in selfies. 3 hours later, I think I like that one. So there's definitely so we have to be discerning, very discerning of how we occupy our time with devices. Okay, so alongside that message, I'm moving more towards getting my hands back into the earth, gardening and being with the plants and the trees.
Boulders, whatever.
Yeah, moving boulders. And then I'm just going to spiral back to a recent roundtable that had Dee and Mel V and Lisa Harrison. And one of the things that was brought up was Dolores Cannon, who talks a lot about 2 Earths. Okay, and I kind of look at that as like mitosis, that the cell splits. And then Lisa was bringing up...
What are the 2 Earths she identifies?
Well, she kind of calls the new Earth is a little more ethereal.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like you see our Earth, and it's in its dense mode,
mm-hmm.
and then you see this other Earth, visually the same, but much lighter, more lit up, and it's just kind of ethereal. It's kind of just starting to part,
mm-hmm.
right? And then what was brought up is, we still have the powers that were that wrote the blueprint for the apocalypse, and the prophecies and the revelations. So the kind of the topic that came up is like, where does all this play out? And my sense is that there is a part of me that knowing and feeling so confident about how the world is unfolding, that it's already in self-correction. It's already got a momentum.
I like that self-correction.
Yeah, because that
great.
comes from John Lamlash,
mm-hmm.
when he talks about the Sophia Gaia creation myth.
Yeah.
He says that Sophia Gaia is in self-correction.
Mm-hmm.
And it does seem that way with the new planetary energies, after 26,000 years.
Well, and self-correction comes from self-awareness. Like,
mm-hmm.
I'm seeing that all the time now.
Right, it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so, okay, and then just in summary of where I was going with that is that I do have a sense that my focus is more on this here and now, and I'm not necessarily being called to really pay too much attention to the things that are crumbling. It's kind of like we know the story now, and mm-hmm. so it's following a thread.
We know the illusion and the mythology, and we kind of were like,
yeah,
no, I need to.
And it's not, and it's not in it's not in the same sense of where we talked about the New Age,
ignoring the denser feelings, the apocalyptic feelings,
right.
the circumstances. It's not about ignoring it or getting yourself up here and being like, no, love and peace, brother, all the time.
Right. It's more like
it's about recognizing it.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked to this actually in so many broadcasts in the beginning about becoming your own discerning observer.
Mm-hmm.
So you can recognize that thing and
still pay attention to when
it,
you're prompted to do something.
But be neutral and then know when and how, and you have a choice in where you shift your energy.
Right. And I'm saying, like, if we're standing in, I'm sensing
Between
my
the two
neutral
earths.
position between these two earths, I really do get a sense that, I don't know how that's ringing because there's no, the battery died. Okay.
Some weird stuff happening.
That's,
Talk
yeah.
about tech.
Yeah. So, the sense of the
Standing between both.
standing between these two potential Earth is that the one of the matrix is really falling away on an energetic level. It feels like it doesn't, the tethers aren't as
strong.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll figure out how to shut
Kiss my
that
ass, Stern.
off.
God, I can't do that again. I'll be taken out. So are we getting a weather report? It's looking like weather might be moving in.
Well,
So.
mine would go off over there.
Okay, all right. We've had crazy weather happening in the Ozarks over the past couple of weeks where those beep, beep goes off on your phone all the time. Yeah, so you're standing between both of these worlds. You're able to discern both and make a decision about where you want your energy to flow, but also being able to observe the other one, the neutrality, and not let it engulf you, the negativity or the illusion or the myth or, you know, the blueprint per se.
Right, right. Like in your neutrality, you can see where you're making different choices. You can, I mean, you can feel yourself grounded in, look at just your everyday, you know, we're still in the now, still got to feed our kids. We still have to take care of our homes. But there's a different sense about it.
Well, that's a good question for everyone out there, whether you want to email a response, get on our Facebook page, call in, whatever. But are you sensing that there's some sort of shift recently into a place of neutral observation and discernment, and that we're shifting into a place of not being so attached to the old story of, you know, let's just say the apocalypse blueprint. And that, have you noticed that people are shifting in a way? They're shifting towards a place of deeper calm and knowing, and that we're not really focused on that old story anymore. You know, like first we were unconscious of the story and we were just like sheep being herded. Then we became conscious of the story and we were panicked.
Right.
And then we became even more aware of the story and we were trying to piece it apart and spend a lot of energy figuring it out and what pieces, and where we're at now, what we're saying. It'd be interesting to get your feedback on this. Is, are we now, because we're sensing we're in a place where we've gone through all of that already, and we're just kind of looking at it and going, well, that's just interesting. Okay, over here, you know.
Yeah. It's like we're getting equally rooted while we're getting equally wise. We're understanding the situation. And I think we're dealing with the circumstances differently too. I think we're now finding, well, let's face it, if you're asleep, you can't even express overwhelm. And overwhelm is kind of a numbing.
Yeah.
Overwhelm is kind of a conscious sleep in a way. You get so overwhelmed and you're holding so much mentally that you can't see clearly. And I think that is where we're coming. And I think I really do feel like we're in a celebratory time.
Yeah, that shift, I would say that shift happened last week.
Yeah, I felt that significant switch too.
I was just going to say something about that. I don't know what I was going to say.
Okay.
Something brilliant, I'm sure.
Oh, funny.
Yeah, or funny. Or smart-assy.
Yeah.
Something about that shift, yeah, evolution.
Well, I had an interesting experience with that shift. It was about a week and a half ago, I think, that you could just feel like the dark cloud. You know, it was like, whoa, everything just went, whoa. And in the midst of that, I had an interesting thing move through me. I had all these crystals out, you know, I usually do. And I have this one big quartz crystal that's just like, it just pulses, right? And I heard in my meditation, I heard, put all the crystals in darkness. And I was like, okay. And it was like, I took them all down and I covered them up. And I noted that it was a week and a half of one of those in the ebb. I didn't really have any clear prompts this way or that way. And so I let it be. And then only a few nights ago, and it was interesting, it was in the evening, and I kind of had heard, tonight you can uncover the crystals. Well, I was on the computer first, and I'm in Facebook, and I swear, I felt like I had gone into the future 20 years ahead. Yeah.
No, you didn't tell me that piece.
All right, I'm in Facebook, and this is, and I'm going, I think I scrolled 20 or 30
years ahead.
posts. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
No.
I saw it on Facebook. See your
20
future
years from
difference.
now. Yeah.
So I'm scrolling through 20 or 30 of them.
Were you wearing your aluminum antennas and
No, everything was in darkness.
right, of course.
And it was like one article after the other that was positive. That was, I mean, it was like this ordinance was passed, this petition went through, and it was the time when that article came out. I don't know how many of you seen it. They're going to change the police uniforms to purple. Oh
No,
my gosh.
I haven't been on.
Oh
much
my
the
gosh,
past
you
couple
have
of
to see this. And that's all to, make them a little more approachable. And I'm like, what?
uniform friendly.
Well, I saw that and I was just like, this is a trip. So I finished with Facebook and I thought, and that was interesting. I've never, ever seen a run like that. And then I started to open up my crystals. Energy just shifted so big. And what I heard is that we had gone through another purge, right? Another energetic purge. And the crystals were kind of going into darkness, like going back into the earth. So they wouldn't be vulnerable. They wouldn't absorb it. And it was kind of like the same thing happened to me. It's like I went in. It was like we all just kind of held a place of maybe like, we were just concealed for a little while. And then the energy shifted and everything was okay to be out again. So that was my experience with it. And it's been on that roll since, that we're in another positive wave.
Okay. So what is this saying about how can we turn this into a usable bite of information?
Okay.
Like what are we really saying here about
All right.
what's happening?
Yeah. Well, the place I go is, I love always embracing the cycle of ebb and flow. Okay.
So are we ebbing or are we flowing?
Well,
in
now I
your
feel like we're
determination?
flowing. Now I feel like we're flowing. Well, from what I just described, we went from an ebb to a flow.
Because sometimes the flow is like this really manic, fast-moving stream of evolution where everybody's like blown out, which I think is what we were experiencing for the last couple of years. And now I'm sensing that our flow is much more of like a gentle stream moving forward. And I'm seeing people in a different place with it, just a more expansiveness. I mean, even platforms that are starting to open up again, like people reconfiguring, like Sasha Stone reconfiguring his platform in this really much more refined way. And, taking on more people, getting more diversity, really trusting the process, being very impeccable with our intentional and purposeful with our words around those kind of things, just getting really clear about like, what's this purpose? And, I'm seeing it not only in, the back end that upholds all this, does all the research and speaks to that, which most people can't speak to. But I'm also seeing it on the front lines. The boots on the ground people are having conversations with me in my consulting work that I have never had before. And they're understanding that they now, a lot of us have already shifted time, expanded it, bended it to fit this new evolutionary cycle. But the boots on the ground people have not. But
Okay,
at
I
the
want to
same time,
clarify
they're
something.
still doing it. They've kind of gone, I'm handling this differently.
Right. They're adapting. I just want to clarify something because boots on the ground has generally up to this moment represented those who are the whistleblowers,
Yeah.
those who are turning the stones over. But you're about to
Well, and boots on the
clarify
ground is an
boots on
army
the
term.
ground is those teachers that are on the floor.
The people that are right.
Yeah.
So we talk a lot around,
Yeah.
you know, changing the world by going out there and creating some huge fundraising thing to put water in 90% of the world that doesn't have it, or speaking to this evolutionary leap because you're psychic, or, you know, and it's like, you know, we've spoken to this before in terms of cliques and elitism and things like that.
Mhm.
But this brings it to another level, which is that, you know, and I am just as guilty because I am one of the headier people. I am one of the intellects. I'm one of the spiritualists. So I could sit in a room in darkness for the rest of my life and change the energetics of the world. You know, like we can do that. But we forget that it's a full spectrum of boots on the ground, people on the front lines. And yes, that term is an army term where people jumped off the helicopters. Let's just take Vietnam, boots on the ground and ran into war. And I'm meaning it like boots on our real life earth interacting with.
Right.
So the front lines is, yes, it's still the front lines. And I'll speak to my experience in a moment, but it's shifting that to boots on the ground and this really determined, not even determined, in this really, we flipped it from war to
Yeah.
a story about really just engaging in humanity, exactly, humanity uplifting evolution. So for instance, when we look at teachers, which I'll get into in a moment, they are the apex of the front lines right now. I mean, we are in crisis developmentally, and
we're talking about teachers in schools,
in schools,
educational
yeah.
systems. Okay.
They're the front lines of the front lines of the front lines, and the way they're engaging is very different. The way they're thinking is very different. And they are changing the world one child at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, folks, our only hope,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So I can speak to that now, or I can speak to it later. But, you know, it was a great reminder for me to be out in the world again, doing what I do and seeing the shift that has happened. So I can speak to it now.
Yeah, I think you should
Okay.
just go for it.
So one of the consulting businesses that I run is going into schools and going and creating professional trainings for teachers to work towards changing how they build curriculum for their students and changing how they interact with their students. So it's based on the small group model where children lead their own learning, and it's a creative process. So I've created a few different professional developments around that, trainings, and then with that I go into the classrooms and I coach the teachers and show them the model with the students. And I used to do a lot of this work, and I, you know, a lot of grant funding came through it to pay me and things like that. And I'd taken I took an entire school year off from doing it to build some other business stuff. And I got a call a couple of weeks ago to go into a school down in Eastern Arkansas, West Texas. So I hadn't been in the classroom since last spring. So it'd been a year, and give or take. And the shifts that I have seen in the teachers themselves, and this was an exceptional school. And mind you, let me tell you that the school, the walls were caving in, the ceilings were leaking. You had to wear rubber boots to walk in the front door because it was so muddy. I mean, it was the shits of the shit. And they were the worst district in terms of poverty and minorities in the entire city that I was in. And, you know, I got the lecture from the principal when I came in the morning I was supposed to start working for them, you know, about we have, you know, 95% poverty and minority, and most of our students, this was an elementary school, our students come from juvenile delinquency halls and psych wards and broken homes and crack mamas. And she gave me the rundown, and most of the kids will be medicated, some will be delusional. And I was like, oh, this is home week for me. This is what I did in Los Angeles. Like, this is my population. I love these guys. So it didn't make me nervous at all. I actually that's one of my favorite populations. And when I'm looking at these children, they have really no applied thinking skills. They have no social skills. Their behavior is so off the charts that most of them are on 4 or 5 different medications. And I worked in very upper echelon, upper middle class white schools, and I worked in these kind of schools before. And there's some correlation between the worse the school looks, the better and more committed the teachers are.
Yeah, right. You know where the money's going.
Yeah, I mean, they really love what they do. They're passionate about it.
Mhm.
But I've seen a shift. Let's just take this population of boots on the ground teachers and let's look at evolution and all this stuff we've been speaking to, from the platforms we're creating, whether it's law or spirituality, these really heady, intellectual, powerhouse, spiritual things that we're doing on platforms like this versus the teacher who's never left East Texas, who's committed to her students and works with the students that nobody would even like say hello to on the street. So evolution is happening in many different facets, but what I was seeing last week after being out of the classrooms for a year and not leading trainings for a year is that these teachers are so profoundly different than they were even a year ago. And the conversations I was having them about my coaching systems and what I would do in the classroom it was like night and day from last year. And this group of teachers, yes, is exceptional. I know this just by the population they chose to work with, but typically when I go into classrooms, the teachers will kind of be multitasking. Once in a while, they'll step in and do it with me. And then we'll have a quick debrief at the end about the reasons I do what I do. Or if I get really lucky, I'll have a teacher that gets it on this like educational model level. Like, oh, you're doing this as an intervention because it helps their learning, or you're doing this because it helps them work in groups, and then there's this level, which I've actually never experienced before, and especially with this population of teachers, which most of them were poor income themselves. Most of them have lived in fucking Texas, like East Texas. So you're not getting this, they're not reading the art section of the New York Times on Sundays. They're not real exposed outwardly. But this conversation dropped down to another level where not only did they participate in what I was doing, they were hungry for what I was doing. They understood on an educational model level what I was doing. But there was this deep, deep, profound understanding on every level of what I was doing with these children and them, where I have never quite experienced that yet. Mm-hmm. And then the conversation opened up to things like, well, Rebecca, what can I do in the meantime until you come back and work with our students? What can I do? And, they're all stressed. They're all exhausted. They're looking for ways to alleviate that. And I said, and I heard myself saying things like, buck the system and expand time. The only way these students are going to learn anything is if you stop doing what everybody tells you to do and do exactly what you know that you need to do. And then they would go, yes, and this is what I need to do, blah, 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 with language that I've never heard from educators before. So where is this coming from, right? I think that it's a combination of the quiet persistence of evolution informing all of us, not just the hierarchy of our spiritual / legal / new earth people, but it's also really being brought into all of us on a cellular level where teachers, and then I come in and then the teachers have this new language to speak to somebody from and go, oh my gosh, I'm in a totally new place. But I also think that teachers, let's just take teachers, for instance, are actually part of the reason evolution is happening in the way that it is. They are so sensitive on some level to where we need to be that their energetic is multiplying even our ability in the back of the house, our ability on the back end, our higher order problem solving that we're doing on platforms like this. I think their energetics is helping us.
Well, I mean, they're working with the children of the future.
Well, exactly. My point.
So, and that's their responsibility in an educational environment, is how do you get this child prepared, not for the world we idealize, the world that we have. And, I've seen that over and over, having been an educator for so many years. The teachers, there's more than not, they're dedicated. And they see.
Well, I feel like they're almost always dedicated.
Yeah.
Where they fall on the spectrum, continuum of what that's going to look like is different. But yeah.
Well, I think the most difficult challenge I had in education was not the children. It was the restrictions.
That's why I said buck the system.
Exactly.
Spend time,
exactly.
expand it, do what you got to do.
So to me, you see, that's like, having that kind of a report is yet another great sign
That's what,
that
yeah.
we're working together, that this is not, even though we know it's still under some old constraints, we're the real people. We're the ones that are sharing what we know. And I love what you're saying is that, humanity is uplifting evolution. I just love that whole concept and imagery.
And I have to kind of like shut my own ass up here because 2 broadcasts ago I was saying the world's asleep. There's so many people out there asleep. And I'm really glad I had this experience because, I kind of pulled back from boots on the ground this year and went into my creative self and my spiritual self to build another business and didn't have my boots on the ground. And then I came back to it and was like, wow, people are waking up. Right. I mean, obviously in my professorship, I see a lot of asleep students with no clue. But my point being is that I come to them and I bring them information, and as opposed to it not waking them up or them not getting it for a decade, they're going, oh, Professor Han, oh my gosh, that totally changes everything about my world. And just knowing that. So, I think people are waking up more quickly because they're hungry and they're being fed.
That is great. Yeah, because I feel like those of us who have gotten frustrated have been like, we see these people not awake. But, and what it is we are so filled with information and being able to say, here, go there, and learn this, learn that. And so to hear the people hungry, that's what I heard about from a friend who's a shopkeeper here in Eureka Springs, gets a steady flow. And she just said to me, you'd be amazed how many people come in and they're asking questions.
What kind of shop is it?
This is like our one of our rock shops.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And metaphysical environment. And
but people are coming in with more deeper questions, more curiosity.
Yeah.
Than just like, oh, I smell incense. It's a rock shop. I'm leaving.
Yeah, exactly. And that reminds me of something that, I put this out actually in Such a Stone. They had a chat room going on last night with the New Earth Nation. And I said, what if all these people who we've identified as asleep, I think I shared this with you, maybe not.
Yeah, a couple of sessions ago.
And I said, what if the people that we think are asleep are actually like time capsules?
Right, you didn't call it that, but yeah, I like that.
Okay, they're actually time capsules. And it's just not time for them to be awake. And for all we know,
obviously it's not.
It's obviously not.
If they're not,
but,
they're not.
What if they're time capsules and in the perfect moment, and that they can't come out right now because it's just not acclimated energetically enough yet. And so anyway, I was trying to reverse the perspective of, we've been looking at people and saying, oh, they're asleep or wake up. And I'm trying to reverse that. It's like, hold up a moment. Why are we judging their sleepiness? What perspective is cultivating in us that says sleepiness and we're in such, here again, we're in need to manipulate their consciousness. And it's like, there's something doesn't sit right there. I think we're all in this, and we really, we've said this before, we're all in this and we all have a part. Yeah, so why are we still judging?
Well, because sometimes it's fun to be a judging bitch. And it's just easier for me to go, I'm so fucking frustrated with humanity, and you're asleep, and you're asleep, and you're asleep, and I'm...
Yeah, right,
It's just easier to go into that pattern of being like, fuck all y'all. Ugh. But the fact is that, divine timing is divine timing. And if people are asleep, it's for a reason. And they are because I know for me, when I'm reconfiguring on a cellular level and having these big shifts, I'm exhausted, but I know enough to know what that is. So obviously people are going into the cocoon, and they're now, and I'm seeing that transformation happening. I'm seeing teachers as butterflies coming out now when nothing circumstantially has really shifted. I mean, in fact, it's getting worse, like the testing and the bureaucracy and the funding, and it's getting worse. And I think, if we look at the 2 Earths, it's getting so bad that there's no room to play anymore. It's so tight and it's so burdensome, and the ceiling's getting so low that everyone's going, dude, I'm out of here. I'm going over here. You know, like I'm going
Right.
over here. I'm not even playing
Right.
in that ballpark anymore. I don't care what the government says about how I'm supposed to be teaching or what. I know what needs to happen because it's become so oppressive that people aren't panicked. They're not trying to figure out. Teachers are just going, dude, I know that's not working. I'm going over here. And we keep using teachers as an example, but we could use it as corporations. We could use it as financial analysts. We could use it as, you know, even yoga instructors. We could take any model really, and we're using teachers just because I think it's a great model. And it's speaking of my experience last week, but yeah. So,
well, on a spiritual or, you know, self-reflection level, I recently was reminded of the symbol and the metaphor of the onion. And, you know, as much time as that I have devoted
what, like
to
the more you peel me, the more you're going to cry.
that
one?
No,
Or
no.
I'm so
The
layered
onion
and
keeps-
complex.
Yeah, right. Well, it is that understanding of knowing
You're going to be
yourself.
tortured if you try and peel this onion, babe. Yeah, that one.
Right. No, you peel your own onion, baby.
I've been trying. I
got enough right here. Yeah, but that has come back to me, and it's like, I don't know, you know, when you've spent devoted time to self-reflection, really trying to understand yourself, and how many times does that happen? You get to a place, you might have some aha, you learn something, and then you're back in the cycle again, and it's the next layer.
Well, and here's another perspective on boots on the ground, because if we'd ever get our fucking boots on the ground, how are we going to know? How are we going to use our? Well, yeah, like, I mean, you know, and I've seen this in myself and others as well. Like, don't read another goddamn self-help book or I will choke you. Go out and engage in the world. Go be on the front lines. Use what you've got. Practice, you know. So we tend to, you know, like, okay, let's take yoga.
Well, hey, that's like relationships. You know,
and
any kind of relationship.
Absolutely. Like, we can read a million self-help books about how to be a good partner or how to have NVC, nonviolent communication. But dude, if all you're doing is like sitting in your cubicle, coming home, reading your self-help books and spending Saturday afternoons in a yoga class, how are you ever going to have the opportunity to come up against these things? And so I encourage everybody to put their boots on the ground. Right. And I encourage you to go back out into the front lines with all the work that you've done, because you're never going to master your metamorphosis unless you put your boots on the ground and put it into action.
Well, you know what, Becca, I think at this...
I'm not trying to tell you what to do.
No,
I'm just
right.
saying,
I'm trying to...
I'm usually right.
Tone her
so
down a little bit.
I'm usually
and
right.
We're not even sure what audience we're talking to. No, but my feeling is that at this point on what's happening on the planet, we no longer have that option.
To what? To not put our boots on the ground?
That's
to
right.
Stay sequestered?
To not put into practice what we're understanding, because I think in every which way, I do trust that the planetary energies are enhancing our collectivity, our community. And so I don't think, even if you go sit in the woods and think you're isolated, I don't think we're escaping any of that any longer.
Well, here are two of my thoughts on that. So those of us that forget to put our boots back on the ground after we do the work is called a new earth martyr. Right? It's like, martyr. Yeah, like if I don't go engage, I'm just being a peaceful martyr. You know, I'm just, okay, I'm going to take on the world in this loving spiritual way. You know what? Get out there, do something with it, quit it. And the other aspect is this idea of, you know, we're coming out of the Aquarian age, and the Aquarian age, as we've talked to before, was all about.
No, we're coming into it.
We're into the Aquarian age, out of the Piscean age, right? Coming into the Aquarian age. And there was this, you know, we really had to master solitude. We had to master being one with the divine on our own. We, you know, the stories of sages and monks sitting in, we did that right, I'll have it dry. Sages and monks sitting in caves for 40 years meditating, or crossing a desert on water only for 40 days, or, you know, and now what's really our challenge is to come out of that and be in community, which is part, you know, on a very circumstantial level. That's why I think yoga classes have become so popular. We're forcing ourselves to take our integration into transformation in community, and it's challenging. And we spoke to this in our very first broadcast about, you know, the idealization of corporation and teamwork in a way where we know where we want it to go. We don't have the tools yet. And so it is challenging. We do come up against our stuff, you know, even relationshiping is changing. I mean, this is the first, you know, 50-year time period where, you know, the concept of soulmating or being a parent, you know, these Uber parents or matching with your soulmate is a spiritual contract in relationshiping. It's no longer a business contract, which is what marriage used to be all about. So now we're confronted with the depths of our soul. Hi, can my depths of my soul meet yours? No, dude, I just wanted you because you got a good bankroll. Like, it's not that anymore, you know? I'll shut up now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and for me, what I did when I did the solo show on multiple dimension realities, in my inner creation, that's I can feel just kind of pounding at, you know, seeking that expansion. I've gone towards exploring what's this reality that's invisible, you know, the energetics. I mean, we know that, you know, we've acknowledged kind of like in a comical way. Right. Oh, you're so psychic. Oh, that was telepathic. I was just going to call you, you know, and on and on. But to me,
that's just normal now.
Yeah, it is. But there is a much deeper call, because I find that one of the ways that I've been able to have a perspective that allows for everything that's happening on this planet and allows me to find the nurturance that I need to hold a good space, you know, just know that every moment is valuable, regardless of whether the whole world is collapsing, but knows that this very moment is valuable, is because of my exploration into our other multidimensional existences. And I think the reason, spiritually, we've even poked at it. All right. We even said, okay, yeah, that's for real. It's like, okay, now I got to find some friends that like to talk about this.
Well, that's like people coming into the rock shop that have no kind of paradigm around it, going, I've said something. Can I ask you questions about it?
Right. Can ask questions. But I think that part of this is because the multiple dimensional reality has been explored on our planet in a scientific and mathematical way, but it's been concealed, that in a multidimensional fashion, we have picked up the information in our being, because that collective consciousness has been on the planet. We know all the information that NASA's hidden from us and the government's hidden from us. And so I just feel like now that we're getting an inkling of, oh my gosh, this could be true. And now the information's being revealed. I think we're having a huge emergence of its time. It's like, I always knew this. I always felt this.
And we're seeing it in how people are refining their platforms on here. And we're also seeing it boots on the ground, is what you're saying. So I think I may need to decipher this a little for you and break it down into a digestible bite. I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, what you're saying is we've got like this quantum field of energy that's neither space nor time, it's always present. Every moment of time since the Big Bang has been ever present, and it floats up here. And we are waking up enough where we can start plucking moments. We could start plucking things and go, oh, I need this. Great. Okay, perfect timing for this one. I need this. Perfect timing. I need this. Whether it's people on the front end, the front lines, or people in the back lines,
right?
You know, so it's this idea that it's always been there, and we're waking up enough to be able to recognize those pieces, i.e. like someone walking into the rock shop going, oh my God, I'm having a visceral memory of an experience, my friend calling me when I thought of them, or, you know, and then having enough consciousness brought up to volume, unconsciousness brought up to volume, where they can ask the question for clarification. And even us on these platforms, like, we're asking different questions. We're setting up different programming to ask more specific questions in a more clarifying fashion to get different results. So everybody's waking up.
And now, as a result of that, I'm experiencing less of skeptics and pessimists
and fear.
And you know what's flushing out is the trolls and the leftover deliberate obstructors is flushing out. It's getting so blatantly obvious that when someone, gets in an argumentative mode, their motivation is becoming so obvious now. It's people aren't so quick
To themselves
to say,
and to others.
Yeah. I feel like the skepticism is really lessening. It's like people aren't so quick to jump on something and say, oh, no, that's not true. They're like, yeah, I never heard that before. And I think this is an absolute necessity when we start examining religions, because we know that in every field of study, there are kernels of truth. All right. And we're really pros at this, at picking out the kernels. Right?
Yeah, we've been doing this a long time.
And I think they're getting more and more obvious. And as a result, the borders are dissolving more and more. The factions that are still holding to something very negative, that's what I'm saying, they're getting so fleshed out. I mean, if you watch a lot of the conversations in social networking, I mean, people are genuinely going, really? Like when someone says something so
stupid.
Yeah. It's like, really? Seriously?
Well, here's a funny bit that I've seen happening, and I see it myself too. Like I'll get on a jag about something that's completely neurotic, like my neurotic parts start coming out in all these different ways, and I've seen this, with other people too, and we just stop ourselves and we go, fucking ridiculous. And we like laugh at ourselves like, what? Whatever, never mind. That was completely neurotic. And that's just like, we laugh at ourselves and then we move on to, like, do we choose this earth or that earth? Oh my God, that's so neurotic. And I am being ridiculous. Like we see our ridiculousness and then we go, all right, what am I really, not only like, that's not what you're saying. What you're really saying, it's obvious to me that you're being neurotic. We even do it to ourselves like, okay, that was completely stupid of me.
Oh, I love it when I go on a rant and I go, I don't even know why I said that.
I know. I am so completely full of shit right now. I'm like, shut me. Why didn't you tell me to shut up? Well, no, you can tell me to shut up. Please do. It's like, wow, that's an old story. That's now it's gone from like this volume self-help book and revelation of my own biography to like a comic book.
Yeah.
Where you're like,
well, something I've said for years, and to this day I still use it. I've never professed to be good at telling a detail. Somebody can tell me this story, and 3 minutes later, I don't tell the story the same way. I already have translated it and tell it energetically. This is the essence of what I got, right? So I really give my perspective on it. But it's something I've said for years. I'll no sooner sit here and tell you, yeah, and so-and-so said this, and then this was the counter argument, and da-da-da, and then...
Makes her a horrible gossip.
And then I am really bad at gossiping. And then I'll go, I could be making all of that up. I swear, I have so many moments like that. It's like, I may have just made all of that up. And so it's my disclaimer.
Yeah. I'm full of shit. That's my disclaimer. I am totally full of shit.
Totally full of shit.
I'm a comic book, not an encyclopedia. Yeah, so I'm seeing a lot of that, and that speaks to that idea of this lightness, of letting time expand in a way where we're not like, if we are ascending in a way, we've been pushing, like even the first few broadcasts we did were about, like, this is what's going on in the world, and that's what's going on in the world, and this is how we dissolve it, and go for it. And now we're just like,
Yeah, we jumped on it.
Yeah.
Well, because those topics are, they may be closer to heart, especially to the ones who are in it.
And that's not, I'm not saying that.
Yeah, no.
I'm saying I'm not taking away from the enormity and the vulnerability of some of those situations that we spoke to. What I'm saying is that we cannot be empowered if we're living in fear and panic.
Right.
So this whole conversation we've been having for, going on 3 months now around our broadcasts about like, become your own observer, be more discerning, find ways and solutions, as opposed to, it's like we've gone through it too. Like now I can look back at some of that stuff and not take away from the enormity and depravity of it. But I've come to such a neutral place in it where I go, okay, what is it that you need from me? I'm here to serve. I'm not even interested in that story. I'm interested in what caused you to have this happen. I'm interested in taking you forward because I am so neutral and my time is so expanded and I'm not pushing anymore. So I have so much space in me to say, okay, this depravity happened to you and you are, on the ground crumbled. How can I be of service to you in my spaciousness, my neutrality?
So really what you're addressing is we have spent so much time examining how did we get to this spot.
And then
But
what can we do? What can we
But
do?
the
What can we do?
transition that you're offering in your neutrality is, okay, we got that. We understand that. Now, how do you move forward from here?
Yeah, how do I be of service to you to move
Yeah.
forward as well? And
Yeah.
so even our own spiel about like be your own observer and be discerning, and like I'm having a revelation now about that I was speaking unaware of the deeper level I've even come to, that I could come to.
Mhm.
Like I'm at a level even deeper than what I was telling everybody to get to, telling
Yes.
myself to get to.
Yes.
You know, it's like talking to the teachers and say, well, you need to buck the system. You need to do exactly in your classroom what you need to do. You need to expand time,
Mhm.
reconfigure how you approach the learning process, not worry about what the government's telling you to do. And they're like, yes, Rebecca, yes, I'm on it. I'm good. And they, you know, they're in a place that we're like, what can I do? What can I do? And I'm like, take a step back and create spaciousness. That's all you have to do to be of service.
Yeah, it's kind of like we don't take no for an answer any longer.
We don't even really care if no is an answer or not. It's irrelevant.
But it is tapping into our deeper roots. I mean, that's the sense I have, is that we are getting stronger. We're getting stronger.
But in a really different way, which I'm liking what I'm seeing.
Right. Our strength is not by how many external tools we've accumulated or how much we've increased our salary. No, we're getting stronger because we're standing up for our truth.
Yeah.
We're standing up for
whether
truth.
we know it or not.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's absolutely.
And I think that's really where the leap happens in evolution, is not, oh my gosh, this is my truth and I'm standing up for it and this is what I'm going to do. And it's when the truth becomes so known and second nature, first nature to us, that we don't really even know what it was before. We have no consciousness of the no behavior. Because as soon as we say no to something, we're already creating a resistance. I am resisting the no. N-O, not K-N-W-O, K-N-O-W. You know, so there's always that resistance. So I think it's come to a place where, and this is, you know, we'll use the teachers as an example. They don't even know what they know. K-N-O-W, because it's become first nature to them. They've integrated it without themselves even being aware of it, to the place where they're in functioning mode in this new paradigm to a degree, you know, and obviously we gain tools along the way, you know, to keep integrating and being more results oriented with where we want to go with this new earth. But the real transcendence, the real arrival is when we don't know that we've arrived. We're just there. We're in it. We're in the practice of a new earth. And I think that's what I'm starting to see in people. So yes, we can go back to the statement about, you know, people being asleep, and your idea of like, well, they needed to sleep. And then my idea came in, well, right, they're cocooning and they're transforming and they're going to come out. Right. And that's kind of what I'm seeing. Like all of a sudden, these teachers are not asleep anymore. Right. They're not just awake in terms of what can we do. They're so awake that they're doing it.
Yes, I agree.
So
I agree. Well, I'm
still full of shit, but I'd like to think that I'm in a place where I've transformed to a place of absolute deep knowing, where I'm just reacting from that or acting from that. But I could be totally full of shit. I don't know.
Yeah.
You tell me.
Yeah, well, and that's what it comes down to. It's like everyone takes the negative truth from each other. Your words don't determine whether you're telling truth or not. Your words don't even determine whether it's a fact or not any longer.
I feel a shift in me.
But I mean, that's the interaction. That's what I'm addressing. It's like, it doesn't, and this brings me back to my whole embrace about diversity. It doesn't matter any longer what words anyone chooses, what references they put on the table, that in the end, it's what you are intuiting as truth within yourself. The truth is not in our heads any longer. It doesn't matter if we have a round,
and we're not even questioning the truth that we're feeling.
Earth.
We just know it to be true.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
And so what we're spiraling back to, and that's where I want to get to, because I feel that no matter what we talk about and put on the table here, all the issues and non-issues, what have you, that ultimately we are continuing to spiral back into our intuitive nature, the part of us that knows what's true and what's not true for us. And in the end, the most necessary tool, as far as I'm concerned, is do you have the ability to quiet yourself down and create calmness in the midst of anything? Because when we're calm and we're quiet, we can make really good decisions.
Well, and that's having space internally to be of service and be calm and quiet and not be in reactionary mode. And
Well, that's what I'm trying to do is like, we just talked about a lot of things and that are riled up and, and how those interactions happen. But in the end, it's like, just like what you say about these teachers, they may not necessarily profess to practice yoga or do a sit meditation. They may not profess to do any of that. As far as I'm concerned, they can do it over a cup of coffee. What's the result of them tapping in is they're in that classroom, they're on that floor, and they're doing what they know.
Well, and the other thing is like just seeing me do the work hits them at such an exponentially deeper level than it ever has before. So
Yeah.
they're obviously in a place whether their spiritual practice has been drinking coffee or whether it's been doing tantric meditation, irrelevant. It's there's a part, or the rock shop, walking in and having some recognition, seeing the work that I'm doing, which was so simple, it would blow your mind, but they understood the depth of it, and it's like, so they're in a place where they instantly on an energetic cellular level recognize what I'm doing and adopt it without even knowing. And that's really different than let me spend 6 months drudging through this in the classroom, getting exhausted by it, trying and trying and trying. And now they're in a place where they're just like, wow, that's it. That's the thing. Energetically, it just shifts them and they're doing it, So
yeah,
that's the change. That's the change I'm seeing.
Well, and that's where I feel so empowered is that when I have that perspective and understanding of the quantum field, okay, and I'm coming back to the multiple dimensional realities, when I have the sense of that expansiveness, I feel that I am of the greatest of assistance, because that expansiveness takes everyone and everything into consideration. And intention is so potent that to think that we can sit here in a moment of our own centeredness and just think about the mother has ripples upon this planet that we can't even fathom. And that I feel is like when I'm in the company of people and I can feel that they're having a stress moment or that something's been triggered. It's like I can be in my presence, in my inner talk, inner speak, and just wish for clearance and upliftment in the conversation. And in nanoseconds, the energy it switches.
Clearance or clarity? You said ask for clearance. Do you mean clarity?
No, I was asking clearance, that I can feel that there's something obstructing, and it's like I don't know what it is. I don't place it on them.
Got it. Okay.
I just say within this conversation, I have inner speak. I ask for that upliftment, that clearance, and take 2 breaths, if that much, and the energetic switch. Now, I could not have imagined how the energies would switch, or either one of us would present or perform from that moment on. But talking to these little subtle energies and knowing, that's why, that's my study right now, knowing it goes all over the planet, it is a very unifying promise. It's a very unifying acknowledgement. And it's like all else can fail, but when you come back to that.
Can you speak to this shift? Well, all the stuff we've been talking to you about expanding in ourselves and creating space and just knowing what we know without knowing what we know. It's just become first nature. From a really earthling place, like what would she, how do you think she would? And again,
okay,
don't quote her on this, but I'm just curious because she's been following. I haven't had a lot of time lately to follow.
Well, I know
things, so.
I'm not updated on her recent.
Just her theoretical model.
I think, I think Lily is so simple and authentic. She comes back to the earth
Right. So what's
she,
going on with the earth that may be a part of this thing that we're experiencing?
what we're conversing. I think I do think about Lily when I said earlier that I feel that there's less and less, maybe it's the mental focus. There's less and less focus on what is dissolving, okay, or the powers that were. It seems like we're getting the story. We don't need to chew on it as much. And I think what Lily's offering is this new earth. She's saying, all right, we know that's there and be strong in it. She's not saying turn away, but she's saying, well, I'm going where she's going.
Okay.
She talks about an earth timeline.
Okay. That's what I'm looking for.
And she feels in her explanations of astral harvesting, which she feels is a very real deal, okay, that as we turn our attention to the earth timeline and stay centered and grounded, that everything else just kind of falls into place. All right. Now, it's not that she doesn't go out into the world, which she does, but her message is very simple. And what she's doing, I watch her in on Facebook conversations. She's helping to identify when someone's feeding an astral, or when someone goes off negative. They're going, oh, those damn fools again, da da da. And she'll just acknowledge, she doesn't go into the topic of that damning conversation. She's just like, look at how you're giving your energy. All right. And she tries to bring us, not tries, but her suggestion is if you come back to that grounded center place, you'll find the earth timeline perspective that allows you to look at those things that potentially piss you off, but look at them from this perspective. Okay. So I think she's just, and of course this is my translation, but I just feel like she's just like this. She's just going, these are my energies. This is earth. I'm grounded, centered. And, quite honestly, she says, I mean, she'll sit for 3 or 5 hours, with her back against the tree and she listens. That's where her communications happen. And I think she's another being that's presenting to us how she makes contact with her higher self. That's her practice. That's how she does it. That's how she cultivates it. So I think she just keeps it kind of clean, sweet, simple.
Does she talk at all about, any relationship to like what's happening with our energetic lines, like our sacred geometry and the earth shifting and how that affects this evolutionary leap? Does she speak to any of that? Because I know that she's really great at telling stories around that kind of relationship between Mother Earth's timeline and what's happening.
She does acknowledge that, the mother has her own itinerary and need. She does acknowledge that, there are natural occurrences happening on the planet, and that's a given. But in the midst of that, it's like what I love about the conversations with Lily is she's not talking about, when and if we die and while we live. It's like nurturing the consciousness that we are part of the earth timeline is significant enough that if and when we pass over and transition, that consciousness will reroute us right back to the earth, that we are the souls that belong to this earth, belong to this timeline. And, I'm just really interpreting it from the way
but that's my understanding as well. I just haven't been able to learn.
And if you listen to, all these folks that are very vocal and they have real genuine understandings and studies, I mean, we all come back to the same thing. It's like, okay, we're here now, right? The asteroid hasn't hit. Today, in fact, is supposed to be the huge earthquake in San Andreas Fault. Then we got something coming up August. Then we got September 23rd, 24th. I finally have come to and it was kind of disheartening in a way, but I came back to this just in the past few days. I'm really cultivating this more again, is I really want to forget about tomorrow and the next day, and the next year, you know what I'm saying? I mean, the timelines that are given us. I really want to let go of that because I can feel it even in myself. Like even when I get in my most quiet modes, I can feel, looking for something that I can hang on to. The monies, the Nasara funds are going to be released. The government has decided they're going to do da 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 da, and I'm so tired of waiting. There is a waiting anticipation because you know what? If you take all of that out, you end up all with yourself. And if you're not comfortable with spaciousness, you're going to look for tomorrow.
Well, you're going to
look for the next. Yep. And that's what I'm starting to learn. It's like, I have to admit that I think there's a grieving process going on in me as I go, it's here now. Right? Now, that doesn't mean great things can't happen. But if you go back to the internal creation, right? If in your heart you see this great project, it's not supposed to now go to your mind and now you work it out there. It's like, no, that understanding of internal creation is you hold a passion in your heart and then you watch how the prompts and cues will show up. And then it's like, oh, now I do this. Now I do that. But we still have a nasty looper going on up here. And honestly, when I sit and go, whoa, it's just the here and now where you really, really, you're not chattering. I mean, you're just breathing. It's hard to do. And it is bringing me to a place of grieving. I think that it's very hard. And I don't think I'm talking about hope, but it's very hard not to think something's better all the time. Like something better is going to happen for me. Something better is going to happen around me.
I'm doing this so I get that.
Yeah. And even spiritually, waiting for the something better. Oh, I'll be able to teleport. Something better.
Most people are like, I just want to breathe for 5 minutes. She's going, I want to teleport.
Well, there's lots of people out there that are waiting for the magical moments. Yeah.
I'm silly.
Okay.
So she's still far beyond the curve that she's like, when am I going to teleport? And most people are like, when can I take 5 breaths in a row?
Yeah, when can I take 5 breaths in a row? But I'll tell you what, that practice, when you really sit and just go, okay, this is it. It's here now. You got to we have a lot of squirrelies in us that are like, yeah, but. And it's like,
well, that's, when we look at that from a neuroscience perspective, we're basically looking at patterned firing of our brain neurons. It's just patterned behavior. It's really hard to change our walking gait when we've done the same walking gait forever. It's really hard to change the way the neurons are patterned to move. So, we're asking a lot of ourselves.
Well, and that's the whole thing. It's like, we can get that external practice of neurological development. But then we have to have the spaciousness of, hey, it's already happening, right? But we even grab for that. It's like, the next.
Well, and it's psychoactive in the sense that even recognizing it changes the wiring.
Well,
which is what you're saying.
That's the inner technology. See, I really commune with that. Is that
because we're all knowing, and so the minute we recognize it, we know it. It's all in us,
and it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So the other side of it, and I want to see that more in balance with all the fields of study.
What's out of balance? I'm unclear of what you're saying is out of balance.
Oh, I think we spend more of our time working mentally still, and
we're
then we do.
Martyrs. Huh? It's a new age martyr.
Yeah, new age martyr. And then stopping a moment, like let's say we're in a huge conversation about magnificent free energy, and stopping for a moment and go, or be silent. Okay. When I just feel like silence is like dark. Okay. We recognize now that the dark is as important. In fact, if not more important, because creation comes from darkness first. Okay. But just like dark and silence, significant, yet hardly embraced.
Excuse me. It goes
And
back to what you're saying about liking to see different chiefs from different cultures sitting in executive meetings together, and how we different cultures handle time and processing differently.
Yeah, because I think we have a real concern now. Okay, now we're in the modern day. Our new concern is the device technology evolution. We're beginning to recognize, okay, wait a minute now, there's a balance that needs to happen here. It's also a tool that's still being used to manipulate mostly our children. So when are we going to put the brakes on that? How are we putting the brakes on that? And it's another one of those things that, that's what happened to Atlantis. It went bazonko, too heavy on the tech side. We forgot our origins. So I don't sense that we're going to have to do another Atlantis, but I do sense it's the same issues.
Mm-hmm.
I do sense it's the same issues. And so, yeah, that's where I see out of balance. I see we're still operating as much as we're using, let's say we're shaping our words and our thoughts in an evolutionary consciousness, okay? But we're still using, I'd say 75, if not more percent of the matrix tools. Now,
we also have this newfound spaciousness we're not quite totally comfortable with. So we're filling that void with technology and Facebook and texting, and not sitting. It's gotten so bad, like we don't even know how to sit with ourselves anymore. People meditate with the phone next to them. It dings. They look at it. It's like, what?
Well, all right. So where on the earth are we starting to demonstrate a concerted effort at bringing it into balance? Now, okay, I mean, where are we demonstrating that we see that technology is not only running too fast, it's still being used as a manipulative tool, but where are we taking some initiative in that? And it's escalating so fast. I mean, let's face it, it's easy to be addicted. The next new phone comes out and it's an effort to put. I mean, I'm a device being. I love my.
You do more than I do even.
And I've had to. It's taken years to scale down, and it's still taking a lot of concerted effort to say, okay, not so much time there. All right. So the balance is it's not easy. And I'm not saying we need a utopia. I'm not saying, oh, now everybody go do yoga, because we know better than that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if we're not cultivating a society with these kinds of principles, and we're now rejecting organized maybe religions or organized studies, spirituality, or what have you, to influence that, how and where is this being cultivated? And so that is a concern of mine. And that's why I feel turning our attention to the earth, think about it. I mean, the earth, our breath, our heart, those are organic. Source, organic. It's kind of like we're safe. Our breath is a given. It's organic. The body's organic, right? Source, quantum field's organic. Earth is organic. Like when you look around the trees and plants, right? And it feels like a good place to start.
Do you think we could put that out? I think I'm getting a little nauseous from it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I think, we are needing to use the tools, technology, just like here. I mean, we wouldn't be, and I think internet is absolutely invaluable. I think it's what has enhanced us. But I wonder if we go back to, I'm trying to kind of relive the Atlantean times and understand there was a point where those of us who knew we were out of balance and we knew that that the things weren't going in a way that embraced all humanity, right? And one of the things that happened was all the power crystals, generators, were removed and buried. And in fact, we're one of the towns where they believe the platinum crystal was buried here in the magnetic hills. So we had these power devices removed, and that's when I think I start to entertain the crystal rainbow bridges to the families of benevolence, all right, that are they're in our solar sphere. Because we don't have...
I'm going to use a restroom.
Mhm.
You have 5 minutes on this one, and then we have to loop it back around. 'Cause you're going way out here.
Of course.
Yeah. All right.
Spiraling.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's like, okay.
I know this story, so you guys listen.
Well, I probably tell it in different ways all the time, but it's like...
I've heard it all.
I've had, I just look at and want to explore those of us who participated in Atlantis and those of us who knew that we wanted our endeavors to continue to embrace equality for all humanity. It's like I'm trying to remember, what were the kinds of choices that we made? What were the efforts? When did we identify that we had a technological society that was running too fast? When we recognized it, what were our efforts to bring peace and harmony back into that civilization? Because we are here now in a lot of ways. And it seems to me, it's kind of like putting dangerous toys in children's hands. It's like, until we have the maturity and the responsibility to all our family on this planet, it seems like we shouldn't be playing with dangerous toys. I mean, that's what we're seeing with the nuclear warfare. It's not in the proper hands. It's being misused. So what brings us back to the centeredness that's needed to re-experience equality for everyone, caring for each other, no harm, do no harm, and to anything. And that's what seems like I come back to the organic, the earth, the trees, the plants, and getting stronger, perhaps with our own integrity of being an organism that belongs to this earth. Getting stronger in our self-truth and our knowledge that the substance of life provides. And it seems to me, it's like we've recognized that we can't take on the matrix. We've done that for eons because we're not going to combat it to resolve it. But it seems, again, strengthening our organic presence and really knowing how powerful we are as spiritual beings, that expansion and collective consciousness, just the bigness of it, is what resolves what does not serve. And so maybe that's where it comes back to these, the earth in a mitosis. It's like those of us who are really returning to the earth timeline, that's expanding And those things that don't work just aren't included. We're just not including that. We're not looking at the new earth. Do we need a military base? No, because we're looking at the new earth that we're all going to be at peace. We're going to have what we need. Yes, we'll have some sense of governance that seems to exist in all nations. We'll have some sense of if an individual does harm, and you could look at the genuine seed of the ITNJ. And that is a popular question. What do we do when there's an injustice? All right, well, we have the ITNJ, but the seed of that Sasha so well verbalized yesterday in his show is the seed of the ITNJ is that we are so at peace and we are having so many of our needs taken care of that out of that genuinity and remembering who we are as divine beings, ultimately, there's not going to be any need for a military, okay? But that's a big jump. And I think one of the things that, I kind of describe it as mourning, but maybe it's a surrender, is recognizing that, we may have a few generations here before all of this fully unfolds. And I think that's part of, when we address the new age bullshit of spirituality, I think it is, it was in hopes of, like that, the world's going to switch. And I don't think so. I don't really sense that any longer. So I think that ultimately is where we're going, but it does take the cultivation and nurturance. I was speaking yesterday, Satya had so, as usual, eloquently stated that, at the seed center of the ITNJ, it's that understanding that we're living from our divine selves now. We're living in such a equality that people have needs met, and we're not doing things because we're trying to gain power anymore. And that is the ideal. And it's going to take some time before we get there, but that also addresses in the long term why we wouldn't even need a military, But so for me, it seems, that's what I'm called to, is just to keep nurturing the new earth, getting bigger. And, at this point, it's like, I always thought about a transitional model. And that's what we're in right now. Mm-hmm. How do we really go through what serves us and let go of what doesn't? And it's really hard. It's like, I don't think we should wipe all the buildings off the planet. I think we should repurpose them. It makes sense to do that.
Rooftop gardens.
And there's some beautiful ideas. So I think for right now, everyone's just pretty much, finding their circles and communities and being creative. At some point, we'll have to, interconnect, So it's, again, it's coming back to this here and now is what we got. This is what we got. And, it's true. You sit in a community that, we haven't had war here, sitting in the U.S. And it's very easy to forget what's going on the rest of the planet. And I often, I just remind myself, that we are so all in this together. And I no longer believe, and I think it's good to get rid of that concept of karma. They chose it, and it's like, forget about that. Crimes against humanity is crimes against humanity. I don't care which way you want to put it or what philosophy or belief you want to put it in. Crimes against humanity. So I do love, I love being able to see what's going on the rest of the planet. It's kind of just a reminder, but it's a different day and age. You can't go off and live on the land anymore and really forget. Just can't. The collective consciousness is
Won't
too,
let you.
yeah. And I'm glad for that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm absolutely glad for that. So how did you want to, you were going to bring this back to what?
I had no idea how I was going to bring it back, but I know that if I didn't at least state that it could spiral into some other arena. So.
Well, I'm going to always be far reaching into the multiple dimensional realities. I feel like, that's who I am. That's where it resonates for me. And it's so curious to me when you hear, people still speaking. What was Simon Parks? I think you saw one of his. He's part reptile, part
Right.
mantis, and part humanoid.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that existence, I mean, that's how unique every one of us are. I mean,
what you don't label it. We're just all a bunch of different, like, conglomeration of things.
Yeah. And it's just fascinating to me. And I think about how many people are sitting with stories like that and, wouldn't dare come out and tell their story. I mean, we don't know who we're talking to every day of the week.
Even when we're looking in the mirror.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, and I think that's, for me, it's like taking years and years to be able to come out and communicate the way I do. I'm just really, that's one of the ways I determine the barometer of consciousness. The fact that I can sit here and talk about multiple dimension realities, this is a whole new day. I mean, gosh, I wouldn't be doing it like this 20 years ago. But I've always been who I am, right? And so it's like, to me, it's imagine all of us on this planet being who we truly are.
We wouldn't even have to name it, really.
No, we wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
We wouldn't. And that's why we're still so vulnerable to the programming, the loops. I think that's why I was talking about the onion. It's like, I'll no sooner see another loop and go, oh my gosh, and our question is like, what's motivating that? Where did it come from? And it just keeps taking you to the next place and the next place. And that's why right now, I can only say that energetically, the matrix planet, I really do feel it's like in my belly. It's like it's slipping away. And it's not that I'm saying, oh, I won't pay attention, but it's really slipping. There's something slipping out of my consciousness. And when I watch all the different programmers and reporters, I don't know about anyone else, but I'm getting a sense like we're even running out of news. Because news,
I get that sense.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's like, because
don't worry, Dee, you always find a way.
Yeah, right. She can just get up and be funny.
Yeah.
She can make a news report out of just the front beach shore in her house. But I am getting a sense like the news is, the quality and the texture of news is losing a substantial ground. It's kind of like, I'm sorry to say, but I think news is becoming old very quickly. It's like, it's kind of like we've identified the stories, all right? We've identified the mechanism of the story. You could put any story on it, right? There's a mechanism that delivers the story, and that mechanism is falling out. And it's like, it's kind of like today, what could be new? What could be new news?
I'm going to disagree with you on this one because I know so many people that still watch the news every night as a conditioned response, and every story seems different because they don't know any better. And also, just a couple of the big stories that are going around social media, like that, what is it? That Christian movement with that Duggar family and the molestation that came out. It's
right,
like, it's just viral, and people keep keep talking about it and expressing it. It's just like, doesn't stop. So I think you might be doing that, and maybe exceptional other few where the news is just like, you see that illusion and it's just an old story that keeps repeating itself with different characters. But I people are still really buying into
So it's
it.
kind of like, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And maybe in that way I could feel optimistic is that it's
They'll
playing
get
out.
there, too.
I do think that I sense a little
Before,
futuristically.
yeah, I do too. Before it,
Yeah.
like what's going to come. So yes, people are getting there, but
Yeah.
I think you're exceptional in that way. I don't feel like that's. And I said to somebody the other night, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I'm watching the news."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Why are you watching the news?" I watch the news every night. To see about the weather, to see what's going on. Stuff happening in the world. I said, why would you watch that? First of all, none of it's the truth and it's all negative. And they go, yeah, but I still like watching it. I still get some information. I'm like, yes, I don't get it.
Well, that's kind of like, I mean, we could advance to people who aren't watching the news. They're still watching movies. Okay. And people get nuggets of truth. Like, I heard in the past 3 days, something like 12 movies recommended because some of the truth is in there. So
I guess if we look at
so
news
people,
from a place of some of the truth might
some
be in
of the
there
truth
somewhere.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that's how people are motivated to watch it.
Yeah.
They're just watching it to fill the void of this new empty space with old pattern behaviors that feel comfortable.
Right. And the devices are filling that space more and more. But, okay, just to step out, where my thoughts go in that conversation is, okay, we've got people who are watching, we call the old news, right? And they're still getting truth out of it. But then we look at even our alternative media news, right? There's a lot of population out there that doesn't think it's all the truth either.
Right.
So
exactly.
we actually have kind of similar
Same
viewers,
mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And in essence, though, the viewers are all one and the same because they're still watching the same movies.
They're just attaching themselves to a story.
Exactly.
Whether it's this story or that story. I see what you're saying.
So in the end, it's like, why are, it's like, there is no separation there unless we've given it the separation. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we, I just like to flip it every once in a while and go, well, wait a minute, if we're accepting of all people, we're allowing people to be who they are, right? Then we don't even want to trash the mainstream media, but we want to talk intelligently about, you can get this from mainstream, you can get this from alternative, you can get this from a B movie, and you can get this from Hollywood, and da-da-da-da-da. And in the end, all the separation, it's like, and that just brings me back to letting people be who they are, and that forgiveness, so that we can start to see how rich everyone is in the diversity. And, if we start to embrace people in, that more human way, it's almost like we don't even have to address some of this peripheral shells. Mm-hmm. Because again, that comes back to what I was explaining, I think, when you left, is that in the new earth, if we're nurturing just our genuine organic makeup, right? Eventually all that stuff just falls away.
Yeah.
So that unity consciousness, once again, so I just like to, acknowledge that on the energetic level.
And I want to remind everybody that you are more than welcome to call in at any moment, and we'll keep talking for a little bit, but time's almost up. So if you'd love to call in or write something in, go for it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, eventually I will be looking at putting a chat room. It'll probably have to be through the dearwoman.com site, but having a chat room, and then you'll be able to just write questions. Yeah, and I want to thank everyone for watching our shows. I do see that that's happening. We are in chat room. Oh, okay. We're just getting a message. CCN, rocking as usual, that they are going to be moving towards a chat room function. So how about that? Oh, I know I'm on top of the mic right now. We are working on that for the future as well. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, that's going to be a real nice perk. So CCN is going to take care of that for us. They just make life really easy here. Let's talk about CCN, Conscious Consumer Network. I mean, bless your hearts and everyone that's participating in this platform. And okay, and it's like, we know, I was just talking about it. I mean, we know why this evolved. And I'd like to just put the focus on those of us that are involved in this platform. We have a shared interest in the shift in consciousness. And each of us has our own very special and unique way of contributing to the consciousness. And one of the things that we've learned, all of us on our own personal paths, is knowledge is power. And one of the things that's very unique about the programmers that come to CCN and share these programs with you is that there is an immense accumulation of knowledge that has been deliberately withheld from us. And they're bringing these pieces forward so that we can put more of the dots together. And as you know, CCN does not take government funding or corporate funding. If you do open yourselves to that kind of funding, there are conditions. And yes, we're talking about the likes of mainstream media. The banksters that own those media platforms have conditions, and they tell the reporters what they're allowed to say and what they're not allowed to say. And one of the things that's happening in our mainstream media is they're getting busted left and right for giving misinformation. And so the likes of CCN, Conscious Consumers Network, we are dedicated to being as truthful and honest about what we bring forth here as we possibly can. And that does not mean you necessarily agree, but we've given you the freedom to decide whether you agree or not. And so CCN, we are outreaching to all of you that are enjoying this, and this is the place where you get nurtured and sourced. We're seeking pledgers and
pleasures.
Pleasures.
We're
Pleasures.
We're seeking pledgers.
Pledgers and pleasures. And if you go to ethymarket.com.
Can you spell that for them? Because we said it every time and we have no idea how to spell it.
I'm sure Biggie might be flying it across the front there, but it's Ethymarket, ETHIMARKET, ethymarket.com. And if you scroll down, you'll see a place for pledging. We absolutely would be so grateful. And, you know, when we get pledgers, it really makes our heart throb. It's amazing. I mean, everyone out there, you know, in this day and age, just a little like on your page, a pledge support, someone sharing what you're putting out, and just like what Rebecca and I have put out, you know, just saying you actually watch the show, that helps us. It's uplifting, it's encouraging, and more importantly, it's connecting. So if you can make a pledge, remember that one of the things that you have available to you through the Effie Market is all of the shows are archived and you get to watch them in high definition. And you can either go offer €5 and get one show at a time, or if you go for a 6 month or a year, you have access to all of the archives. And now I'm sure we're approaching 300 or more programs are in that archive venue. So please, if you can, we're still looking for pledgers. It takes a lot of work to do this. And honestly, you know, every little bit helps. So anyway, in every way, even if you just write to CCN, you know, just tell them, rock on, guys, and you're doing a great job. That makes a difference. And
well said.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And also, I'm going to continue to put support and words in for the International Tribunal of Natural Justice. We have a big event happening on June 15th, and Sacha Stone just did had a beautiful forum of people. Just did the show yesterday. I am sure it'll be in the archives at CCN in less than 48 hours. And please follow ITNJ. And, those folks, they say they've got 2,000 researchers that are coming from backgrounds in law and all kinds of things. And it's about the only thing I see out there right now that's collectively organizing us internationally to create a judiciary court, an environment, the likes of what we did for Nuremberg war trials. And right now, yes, it is with the understanding that our judiciary system all over the planet is corrupt, plain and simple. And hopefully that becomes an everyday comment in the world, like, oh yeah, our system's corrupt, and oh, right on, ITNJ is taking it all the way. So please, when you see ITNJ being advertised, they too are looking for support. And believe me, just making comments, just saying, man, I'm so thankful you're doing this. Right on. If you see anything on Facebook that has to do with CCN or ITNJ, Adventures in Sovereignty, support those and promote those. And I haven't done the update recently of what's going on in Hawaii, the Big Island, but I would also say there's an amazing sovereign movement going there. And those people, the Hawaiian people, and it's not just the Hawaiian people, but my gosh, if you want to watch a movement that is coming from the heart and coming from the understanding of indigenous people and the justice that is deserved to all people, poke in and support that movement as well. It's really, I think it's one of the most potent models on our planet right now. So those are the three that, I've been circling with strongly. And of course, again, Get Lit. We have a Facebook page. And when you see my crazy graphics go up, it's fun when somebody just takes the time to put a comment and say, I like it, instead of just click like. It is really fun to just say, hey, I didn't catch a show, archive, I'll catch the archive, or love it live. And I'd love to call in. I'm not quite ready, but I'm getting my courage to do that. So, and again, it is a call-in show, and I know I didn't announce it earlier because I know that Biggie's putting it across the bottom of the screen. So, and also a reminder, if there's topics you'd like to have us bring up, please, you can put that request in too. So
just a reminder for those of you that weren't in the very opening, that we are shifting our studio. We're dismantling the studio because I'm going to be traveling for most of the summer doing work and other stuff. So starting next week, Blue and I will no longer be in the same studio together. We will be in like the different windows that you see when you watch other broadcasts.
Right.
And there will be several times this summer where I will not be available to do the broadcast with Blue, but we're working on some guests or some pretty specific topicing that we can do around that. And I will make my presence be known through some preemptive work that we do around it. So just know that there's going to be a lot of times this summer, several that I'm not going to be available. And then starting next week, you're going to see our own studios happening, not the studio that we've been sharing, because we're both
our mobile studios.
Mobile studios, yeah. So we're not disappearing. It's just shifting. And my boots are going to be on the ground a lot this summer
right.
into the fall. So things may need to shift eventually to something even more different. But for now, we're just going to be in little talking windows.
Yeah. And I will add, since you did get introduced to Tamara Jonas, and she'll be filling some of those co-host spots. So you can look forward to her being back on the show. And also, if there's anyone out there that's interested in being a guest, just contact us, and we'll arrange for you to be on the show with us. All right. So I think that's it for today. I'm sending so much love to you. And remember, the ripples, our intentions, makes a big difference in the world. Absolutely.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Thank you, Biggie. Thank you, CCN. And we will see you all next week from our new locations.
Our new locations.
Have a great week, everyone.